Hello, I'm Alexis Williams, co-founder of Business Skills for Health Professionals and host of this podcast, Beyond Clinical. So in this podcast, I will be interviewing health professionals from diverse backgrounds who have moved into unconventional roles beyond clinical. We'll be hearing their stories with the hope that this inspires you to consider pursuing unique career paths. So this is the 6th episode of the podcast, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Brittany Brockner. Do you want to say hi, Brittany?
Hey everyone.
Awesome. So I've actually never met Brittany until a few minutes ago, which is kind of exciting because I love hearing people's stories for the first time on the podcast. It's extra exciting. But I'll give you a little bit of background and then Brittany will share more about her career path when we get to the questions. So Brittany is a registered dietitian working in the dietary supplement industry. She's in Florida. And she started in regulatory compliance and has since moved into product development and claims substantiation, where she develops innovative formulas based on scientific literature. Brittany shares her career journey into the dietary supplement space, which combines her passion for nutrition research with creativity. So really excited to hear from you, Brittany, but I'm going to start off with a fun question.
Sure.
Is there something that you're excited about for this coming season? And it doesn't have to be work related, but it could be if you want it to be.
Yeah, I think I'll go more of like the fun route personally. As you mentioned, I'm here based in Florida, but I am from Long Island, New York, and I'm gonna go home for the holidays. So I haven't been home for a while, so I'm really excited for that. And I'm excited for a weekend in New York City to do all the Christmas things, see the tree, Bryant Park, maybe go ice skating. I think that New York City is a magical place to go to during the holiday season. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I haven't been for a few years. And I used to go frequently, but since I've been here in Florida, it's not as accessible. So I'm really looking forward to just the holiday season going back home.
I love that. I think that'll be super fun. It'll be like the traditional Christmas feels with the winter weather, maybe.
Yes,
And then you'll be ready to go
absolutely.
back to the sun, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, in Florida, it's nice because it's 80-degree weather. It's like how could I complain about that? But there's definitely no holiday vibes. The palm
Yeah,
trees with lights on it, it just doesn't get the same the same
I get
result.
you. Well, that's exciting. I hope you have a great vacation. So I'd love for you to tell me a bit about your career path and your journey as a health professional into kind of the supplement industry and business settings. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll start, I guess, from the beginning of my career path so you can get an idea of my experience up until getting into the industry. So immediately after undergrad, I started working full time in community nutrition, specifically with clients who have HIV/AIDS. And I really enjoyed that work. I was simultaneously going to grad school and just working there for a year to save up enough money to sustain myself through the dietetic internship, which is my internship was unpaid as most are, which is
Mm,
a whole nother conversation there.
yes.
But so I worked to kind of, because I had to go to a different state for my internship. So I was working at the community nutrition job just to save up for the expenses for that following year in the internship. And that is where I realized I did not like clinical work, which was
Mm,
a real bummer in my internship because at that point I had been going to school for 5+ years with the intention that I was going to go clinical. I really
mhm,
liked what I realized was that I loved clinical nutrition academically, but
mhm,
not so much when I was actually working in the hospital. I loved
mm,
medical nutrition therapy. I thought it was really cool. I still do. I love science. I love that I could use nutrition in like a medical way. But just for me, when I was in the hospital and also nursing home settings, I just didn't feel like it was the right place for me. I believe in really tuning into your intuition and listening to what your body is telling you. And throughout that entire internship experience, I just felt down. It didn't
mm,
feel like this was all that I had thought it up to be. I think it was I, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what I didn't like so much. I think it was I didn't feel that I was making the impact that I thought I would be, where my client or patient assessment would end in an educational session that maybe the patient doesn't want to hear, or I'm prescribing a protein shake, which is helpful, but just not really feeling that impact that I thought I would. One thing that I did learn in clinical was the value of connecting with patients. I
Mm.
think I had a really helpful mentor that tried to make as much time as she could with each patient, even though it is difficult because there's such a big caseload. But to make the time that you have with the patient as valuable as it can be for them, making them feel heard is something that is missing from healthcare in a lot of cases. So that
Mm-hmm.
was one valuable thing that I did take from it. But overall, I knew that wasn't the place I wanted to stay as I go into my career as an RD. So, with that being said, since I knew what I didn't want to do, it left me open to figuring out what it is I wanted to do, because I really didn't know the other options. I
Mm.
knew there was private practice, but really anything like business industry related is not talked about so much in school. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just sort of looking online, Googling, like, what could my nutrition background help me go into? And that's where I found the dietary supplement industry, which is where I'm at right now.
Mm.
And I think that this industry is really an exciting place to be. There's a lot that goes into it. And I think it's a place that is often overlooked by not only dietitians, but a lot of clinicians in general, where we have a lot of skills and knowledge that can be used, and it can go really far in this industry.
Oh, that's so interesting. When you were talking about your experience in internship, I can very much relate to some of the feelings that you shared of just not feeling like it was the right place for you. And I had that same feeling. But yeah, you're right. I think a lot of clinicians and dietitians don't really think about supplements as a career opportunity. And I think there's a lot of different areas even within that industry. So I know you started out kind of in regulatory, and you've shifted a little bit. Can you just talk a little bit about like that transition and kind of how you grew into your role that you have now?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was scouring the internet for jobs that were not clinical that I could go into, I found the position of regulatory affairs role online. And reading the job description, I found a lot of things in there that I was actually knowledgeable about. Like, it mentioned food allergies, it mentioned some food regulations, mentioned like nutrition calculations, all these things that I absolutely know about. And so that's what kind of drew me to my original role in regulatory. And then when I started the job, it even opened up this huge new world where there are actually a ton of regulations for dietary supplements, and a lot of them are pretty similar to the regulations for food.
Mm.
In school, we learned some regulations for food, but I personally did not learn any regulations for supplements. So this
Mm.
was a big learning curve for me. But with the nutrition background, it came pretty easily. I did have to put in some, extra work on what the regulations are, but understanding them is a lot easier when you have a nutrition
Mm-hmm.
science background. So I'm trying to think of like an example for you. Oh, an example of where regulatory and science combines in this industry is for the percent daily values.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I'll give an example of like protein. So, per the regulations, your percent daily value has to consider the PETA score. And for anyone listening who might not have PETA on the top of your mind, that stands for protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. And it's basically a score that measures protein quality according to the concentration of essential amino acids. And an example where this comes into play is for collagen. So you can have a collagen product that you could say it has protein because it does, but the percent daily value has to be adjusted for that PETA score. So an example is 20 grams, say you have 20 grams of protein per serving. Typically, that would be 40% your daily value. But when you adjust it for the PETA score, it's actually 0% the daily value because it's missing the essential amino acid tryptophan. So if a protein is missing an essential amino acid entirely, that score is going to be 0. So that's something that's like, oh, that's, you're
Yeah, that's
connecting
cool.
somehow that science with the
Yeah.
regulations. And if you didn't have that science background, that regulation might not make any sense to you whatsoever.
For sure. Yeah, I think regulatory is a great space for dietitians and other health professionals. Just having that science evaluation brain and ability to kind of look at some of those more technical aspects. I also think it's a really great place if you're kind of detail oriented and enjoy research to be, because it is quite, like, from my experience of working with regulatory teams in the retail industry, it's quite detailed. It's nuanced. There's a lot of little things to kind of consider. So yeah, I could see that really being a great fit for dietitians. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it is, you're exactly right, where you can have a regulation, but then there's like 10, it's 10 steps more than you originally thought. And I think a lot of dietitians and clinicians in general are really good at getting down to the nitty gritty and understanding all those different nuances.
Awesome. So what kind of things helped you on your journey kind of into a new industry?
I would say definitely just believing in myself. And of course, believing in yourself helps with pretty much everything. But for me, it was an experience of having no idea where I wanted to go after discovering I wasn't going to go into clinical. And really, everyone around me telling me that that was the best option for me because it was, a stable income. It's what I had been training for the past 5, 6 years. I know my parents wanted me to go into clinical, and I love them, but I think they were wrong in that regard. But they didn't know that there was other options out there for me. And of course, in school, my teachers and everyone, like, they have certain fields that they sort of recommend that we go into, clinical being one of the biggest ones, private practice, maybe community nutrition, but definitely industry is something that wasn't really recommended or spoken about. So for me, the biggest help of finding this industry is believing that there was something better, like more aligned, not better, but more aligned with where I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
And yeah,
For sure. I
just
think the
trusting my gut.
confidence, yeah, I agree with both of those. I think the confidence is really interesting because sometimes we forget that even if it's an industry that maybe we don't know everything right up front, like you mentioned, kind of having to learn it, if you have the confidence to know that you can learn some of those more technical skills that you might need for a role that you don't have when you're applying for it, I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they don't realize their ability to learn and learn new skills. So I loved that you said that. Are there any key skills that you learned along the way? Anything specific other than like maybe the technical regulatory skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, one of the biggest things was just learning about the industry in general, learning about the whole process of product development. There's a ton that goes into the process from product concept to the actual commercialization of it, which I had no knowledge whatsoever. So understanding that whole process on how products are manufactured, raw material selection, labeling, claims, determining the dosage of the product, determining your target audience, all the regulations in between for that whole process. So really getting an understanding of what it takes to create a product helps when you're coming up with product ideas, because then you know what else is down the road. And
Mm-hmm.
also learning the technical regulation part was overwhelming for me at first, because I had
Mm-hmm.
felt like I went to school for so many years, but I didn't learn any of the supplement regulations, which was the main focus of my job when I first got into the industry. So the regulations are mostly in the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, and I actually studied that outside of work.
Mm. Yeah.
Being a type A dietitian, I was trying to make sure I understood everything, and it definitely helped, having that extra read through and having that nutrition background really helps with understanding why regulations are the way they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it speaks to that previous point. Like, you might have to put a little bit of extra effort in to learn these new skills, but they're definitely
Mm-hmm.
within your capability. And I think that can be said for a lot of different business skills that you might need to work, in a different kind of industry. Like for me, a similar example was I had to learn a lot about finance because I was managing like a larger budget. And that was
Mm-hmm.
a bit overwhelming because I didn't really learn about that in school, but with the right tools and resources, like it's all within your capability. So I guess that's a
Yeah, I think
message
that's
to send to
huge.
everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you are interested in going into a different industry, it's going to be a learning curve, but it's
Hmm.
absolutely doable if that's something you want to do.
Yeah. Have you faced any challenges with this career journey?
I think my biggest challenge thus far was at the beginning, but just feeling overwhelmed with all the things that I needed to learn, with regulatory and not having too much experience, in that field. So the biggest challenge was just getting over the fact that I was gonna suck at first, and then I had to learn it from the ground up. But after that, it's been pretty smooth sailing, to be honest with you. Once I got the hang of things, it's definitely something that comes a little natural to me.
Oh, that's exciting to hear. Yeah. Do you have any advice for someone that maybe has been working in more of a traditional clinical role, but isn't really feeling like it's for them and wants to transition to something, I guess, beyond clinical? Any advice for them?
Yeah, definitely. First, I'd say you have what it takes to go into any other industry that you want. I would suggest doing your own kind of Google search on what options are out there. Anything that's science related, you could probably do. If you find an industry that you're interested in, if it's dietary supplements, go ahead and network with other RDs, other healthcare professionals that are in the industry. There's not too many of us. So if you connect with other RDs in the industry, you already have that connection because you're both RDs. We want to help each other out. And I think that you're extremely valuable in this field. So I would start there with the networking and then just looking for openings online for potential job opportunities. And also, when you're networking, you might get a job opportunity that hasn't been posted yet. So that's another
Hmm.
another perk for networking
Yeah.
properly.
Yes, I often am coaching my clients to do that, is to make a list of companies you're interested in working for and start networking with
Hmm.
people, because most people don't get jobs from applying to postings. Like when
Hmm.
they get hundreds of applicants, it's sometimes a lot more efficient to narrow it down a little bit and make some connections at a company, because you might, as you said, like hear about things that don't even get posted. So I love that one. That's amazing advice.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And also for a new field, the RD can give you some insights on what to expect and some
yes.
things that you might be good at. And I actually want to touch on my more current role. I know we talked about the
Yeah.
regulatory part of things, but I've actually moved into a little bit more of the science side of things, if I could kind of
Hmm.
mention more about that. Currently, so I'm overseeing what is called claim substantiation. And in dietary supplement world, there are only certain claims that are allowed on a dietary supplement. So FDA has outlined what makes a supplement unique compared to any other product, like compared to a food or drugs. Supplements can uniquely make what's called a structure function claim, whereas no other product can make those kind of claims. And a structure function claim is essentially saying a nutrient or an ingredient helps to maintain the structure or function in the body. So it's really, regulations are saying it helps to keep the status quo, helps to keep a healthy body continuing to be healthy. So for example, you could say your supplement helps support immune system function, but you couldn't say that your supplement helps to cure the common cold. Because if
Right.
it's curing a cold, then that would be considered a drug and
Yes.
subject to a whole different host of regulations and scientific backing.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's such a neat area, and it's quite heavily regulated, which I think it's great that
Mm-hmm.
it is. And it's good to have people like yourself kind of just having that deep knowledge of nutrition and nutrients, supporting companies in those navigating kind of that space, because I'm sure that's challenging for them. If that, like, depending on their goals and objectives. So
Yeah, the FDA has quite extensive guidelines for the kind of scientific evidence that they require for a claim on a supplement, which is kind of shocking to a lot of people because, like, how could you, how much evidence do you really need to say vitamin C helps with immune function? But really, they do require um, well, it's not requirements, it's more so guidelines, but
yeah.
they do prefer there to be human studies,
Hmm.
specifically randomized controlled trials, and they do specify that the gold standard, double-blind placebo-controlled, is something that is preferred for substantiating a claim. And there's also a lot more details. This is where the research skills that you learn as a dietitian come into play, where you have to pick apart those clinical trials. It's not just, oh yeah, there's a trial on
Hmm.
vitamin C, but it's also looking at the study population, the dosage, the form, study duration. Are the results appropriate for the claim that you're looking to make? So there's a lot that really goes into the analyzing of the study and then applying it to your actual product.
Yeah. I think that could be so valuable from a career journey standpoint, though, because you're learning skills that could really transfer well into like academia or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like other aspects of research, like working in government settings. So I think it's a great place to probably build some of those like critical thinking and analytic research skills that you would need for so many other roles. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the transferable skills, is that like research,
yeah.
analytical part where, all dietitians, we know how to analyze research and assess the totality of evidence and communicate that to our patients. And it's really the same skill in the dietary supplement industry with claim substantiation, except you're assessing the research and applying it to a claim or a product development instead of
Mm.
to diet recommendations to your patient.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of your own personal development goals that you have kind of ongoing right now?
I have a few. One is this coming year, I want to finally learn Spanish, like much more fluently. I've been doing the
Yeah.
Duolingo thing once in a while, but I think I need to do like at least an hour of Duolingo a day to
Yeah.
have some sort of meaningful, like, conversational level of Spanish. Um, I grew up in a Spanish speaking household, but somehow didn't really learn Spanish all that well. So
Yeah.
definitely one of my personal goals. And then I have another goal of being a better public speaker. That's something that I know a lot of people have some level of fear on, but it's something that I think is a really powerful skill to have if you are able to perfect it. So I'm just recently joined. I don't know if you've ever heard of the group Toastmasters, but they
Yes.
do, yeah, they do
Yeah.
meetings every week where you go up and you have to speak on the fly. They ask you a question, you have to talk for a certain amount of time. So it's it's nerve-wracking, but it definitely helps me get out of my comfort zone.
That's so cool. I think Toastmasters it's world renowned and it's a really
Hmm.
great space. The other thing I've heard that's really good for developing comfort is doing improv. We did some
Yeah.
training sessions with my team previously where we brought in like an improv trainer to just help with like feeling more comfortable on the fly and some of those like key skills. But I think that's a great goal. And even doing things like this is good practice too, right? Even though it's not
Yeah, absolutely.
visually in front of a big audience, it still increases your confidence in speaking. Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, if you want to connect with me, I am available on email or LinkedIn. My name is Brittany Brockner, and the email is just my last name, first name at Gmail. So Brockner Brittany at Gmail.
Awesome.
Also, if you're interested in getting into this field, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to connect and talk more about it, see if this is something that is a good fit for you. And I've also taught dietary supplement regulations as a speaker to nutrition students. So if you're listening from a college or any school and you want me to be a guest speaker for you, feel free to reach out.
There you go. That's good experience too for your goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so kind of you to provide your information and connect with people because I mean, that's really how we all learn and grow. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today too. I'll do a little quick wrap up before we end off. So I hope everyone's enjoyed hearing from Brittany today. I certainly learned a lot about the dietary supplement industry and the role for dietitians in that space. If you want to engage more with the Business Skills for Health Professionals community, join the Facebook group, Business Skills for Health Professionals community. I'll link it in the show notes below. We also have our Beyond Clinical Career Transition program, which is really coaching and support to help you make career transitions. You can learn more on the website bizskillsforhps.com, and I'll put it in the link below as well. We have it half price till the end of the year, a little holiday year-end special. But yeah, check that out. And yeah, thank you so much, Brittany, for joining us. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.